What if the greatest threat to your leadership isn't stress, competition, or market uncertainty? What if it's the sleep you're sacrificing to stay ahead? Most executives believe sleep is something you earn after the work is finished. Today's episode argues the opposite. Sleep is the work that protects your ability to lead. And by the end of today's episode, you'll understand why sleep is actually a leadership competency, how poor sleep quietly damages executive judgment, why most leaders never recognize the decline, and practical strategies to improve executive capacity without working fewer hours. Let's talk about the leadership myth, hustle culture, and executive identity. Why I'll sleep when I'm dead became leadership advice. Let me ask a question. Do you know why high performance normalize fatigue? Hmm. I'll tell you, it's that dopamine hit you get from a good job, the attaboys, the pat on your back. It's the we've now gotten into this masculine culture of competition and doing it all. And biologically, we can't do it all in a 24-hour span. So I think that's where the sleep when I die will start it coming up. Now, I don't know. I've heard this since I was a little girl from my parents. Again, for those of you who don't know me, I am a first generation African American. I come from Caribbean parents where the belief was if you didn't have five jobs, you were being idle and unproductive. So I'll sleep when I die was my mantra. I still don't believe in the typical retirement that most people glorify and can't wait to turn 63, 65, 67, 70. Now I think regular retirement is now age 73 because we are living longer and healthier. Woo woo. But I don't think I'm going to retire in that traditional way. But what I do know is that the hustle culture, I have put the hustle culture hat down. I am going to sleep now. I am going to recover now. I am going to I'm going to rest now. I'm going to recover now. I am increasing my capacity now. And when I get to retirement, I'm going to continue to do the same thing. A matter of fact, the hustle culture that's the only thing that is dead in my life, especially. But I really think that a lot of it is just the dopamine hit that we get from the achievement and the attaboys and outworking everybody else. But our body keeps the score and eventually it collects. So the hidden cost of glorifying exhaustion is, like I said, the body keeps the score. So the hidden cost is the invisible things that we don't see coming in the beginning. We think that, oh, I'm young now, I can handle not having any sleep, I'll catch up when I retire. Well, when we have poor sleep and we don't get that deep rest that we need in our glymphatic system, that's the cleanup system in the brain, is not working effectively and it's not clearing out all the plaque that's building up, you're going to be resting in a bed of dementia and Alzheimer's. That's one of the hidden costs. Another hidden cost is our relationships. And you see this a lot. You see this on TV shows that people work, give their kids everything, and their kids don't even appreciate it because what they really wanted most was time. And that's why they're acting out. Your marriages. Now we're seeing an epidemic where people are staying together, and as soon as that last kid is off to college, they're getting a divorce, or as soon as retirement hits, they're getting a divorce because they've been strangers for 25, 30, 40 years. So now I'm stuck with this stranger day in and day out. We don't have any hobbies, no interest in common. Both people have evolved over the last 40 years. No one invested into that new person 40 years later. So then your relationships fall apart. Or you miss time with mom and dad, and I'm going to get to it, I'm going to get to it, I'm going to get to it. And then you're left with regret while you're staring into their coffin. The hidden cost of glorifying exhaustion on your job is that you don't even realize that you're at diminished capacity until you make a catastrophic decision that quickly halts your leadership, or your health deteriorates to the point where either you can't return to leadership in the capacity that you were in, and if you do, everyone is now looking at you and they're not questioning every decision you make because they no longer see you as healthy and wise. I mean, you can't even lead your health. So you allowed your body to break down. I'm supposed to be taking decisions from you. Hmm. Yep. So that's a big part of it. Another thing is the danger isn't feeling tired. The danger is believing you're functioning normally. And that is the danger. And I talk about this all the time. A lot of us, whether we're executives or just everyday people, we're functioning at 60 to 70%. And because that is so normalized for us, we've culturalized that. We don't even notice the difference. It's like an analogy I made last week. We call blood pressure the silent killer for a reason because it is one of the chronic illnesses that is the least perceptible. At least with some of the other ones, you have symptoms and the symptoms get so progressive and so uncomfortable, like diabetes, where you're constantly thirsty, you're constantly going to the bathroom. For women, especially if you're entering perimenopause or menopause, you're constantly having yeast infections and bacterial vaginosis. For men, and for women too, you start losing your eyesight. Your legs are getting numb. You're stumbling and falling. You stepped on glass. You didn't even feel it until you happen to be stepping in a puddle of blood. So that has consequences that will rush you to the doctor and say, something's not right here. Or extreme pain or bleeding. Those are symptoms that speak out loud. They yell out loud. So it gets your attention that I need to get medical attention immediately. But blood pressure, not so much. You could walk around for months with blood pressures at stroke levels, which are your top numbers 180 or higher, your bottom numbers 100 or higher, and you feel fine. Until one day you have a thunderclap headache or you just collapse because a blood vessel burst in your head. So that's the danger. You're walking along and then you're not. Let's talk about something else. I want to let you know that sleep is executive maintenance. So we're going to talk about some things that sleep affects, whether you have it or not. So let's just start with the not having good sleep. Obviously, if you're not having good sleep, you're having brain fog, and brain fog affects your decision quality. So if you're a leader, a CEO, and you are leading companies and you have thousands of employees and millions and billions of dollars at your disposal that you have to make strategic decisions for, and you are constantly operating in depletion, your decision quality is poor. And again, a lot of times you don't know it until you're in visible burnout, until it's screaming at you, or until you make that catastrophic decision where now either the organization is questioning your judgment or they're actively looking to replace you. Emotional regulation. Poor sleep, you're obviously going to be a little bit more impatient. Maybe for some people, a lot more impatient. Um, you're going to be short. You don't have tolerance for ambiguity. You're not thinking strategically because you're constantly in firefighter mode. You're constantly putting out fires. So an emotionally regulated person, they realize that there's power in the pause. So they step back. They're able to pivot. But if you're the firefighter, everything looks like a fire. You look like you're surrounded in a ring of fire and you're constantly putting out fires. You're constantly impatient. You're constantly agitated. Your cortisol levels are high, which affects other areas in your body biologically. Strategic thinking, obviously, that's impaired. I mean, you can't think strategically if you're constantly in survival mode, if you're constantly in fight or flight. Your cortisol goes up and all your energy goes into urgent thinking. So there's nothing left for strategic thinking because there's no power in your pause because you're not pausing. Now, here's where sleep is helpful: memory consolidation, creativity, pattern recognition. And this is why you don't just need duration of sleep, but you need quality of sleep. Because when you're in the REM cycle, that's the rapid eye movement cycle of sleep, that's usually the third period of sleep. And you need that because that's what it affects. You need that daily to remember, where did I put my keys? Did I leave my glasses on my head? You see that a lot, especially with the 40, the 50 plus SAT. I'm looking for my glasses and their glasses on their head. I'm looking for my keys. You're not as creative. You just want to get the thing done. You stop recognizing patterns. And this becomes dangerous. At first, it's kind of cute. Oh, okay. I have glasses everywhere because I'm always forgetting my glasses. I'm always forgetting my keys. I'm always forgetting this. I'm always forgetting that. Until 10 years down the road, that leads to you needing to have around the clock care because of years of chronic insomnia. The plaque is built up in your brain, and you now have some kind of cognitive impairment, whether it be one of the dementias or Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's, everyone recognizes that, and everybody calls cognitive impairment or memory deficit Alzheimer's, but it's not. Alzheimer's is usually diagnosed by increased plaquing in the brain, but cognitive and dementia is different, but it's all a dementia. It's all in the dementia family. So any type of cognitive impairment. And so that's something to think about. And as a leader, if you're no longer creative, if you no longer recognize patterns, because there's going to be patterns in the market, patterns with stocks, patterns in whatever market you're in, there's a pattern. If you're unable to recognize that, you're unable to be strategic, your creativity has gone out the door because of emotional dysregulation. No one can even come to you with a creative idea. You're just shutting it down because you know best, because you're deferring to familiarity. Your leadership is going to be succeeded. They're going to be having backdoor meetings, looking for your next replacement. And then memory consolidation. If your memory is poor, how are you going to continue to lead? So poor sleep is actually a risk to the organization. And getting good sleep and having a good recovery infrastructure is actually risk mitigation. So that's something that a lot of times we don't think about because it's not a KPI that normal companies track. Now, I track it because I'm into longevity, and most longevity specialists or doctors do track that. And it is a way to track it, but you already have a lot on your plate. So let me leave you with something simple. The goal is to have a good bedtime routine, which we'll talk about some strategies later. The goal is to get 7 to 9 hours of good quality sleep. And also your body would tell the tale. So you don't need necessarily fancy trackers. Just listen to your body. Get calm enough to listen to your body. And then you will start to realize in the change in your decision quality, and you will be mitigating the risk to your leadership. And then I think all of that does speak into your leadership presence, because no one is going to respect a leader who cannot remember, who cannot recognize patterns, who's not a strategic thinker. All you'll have is employees that are in presenteeism, or you'll have very poor retention, employee retention, because they will realize that they're on a sinking ship and it's time to abort. Poor sleep doesn't remove intelligence, it reduces access to it. So let's talk about what sleep deprivation looks like inside organizations. It looks like poor hiring decisions. Sometimes, somebody could look good on paper, but you're not looking for the nuance. And a lot of hiring decisions, a lot of times we are looking for yes people, and we need something that's a little bit well rounded. If I have a weakness, I don't need to hire my handicap. I need to hire to my strength. So they will strengthen the company. But if you're constantly emotionally dysregulated, you don't have the patience for ambiguity or dissent. So you're basically hiring yes people who have the same strength as you and the same weaknesses as you. It shows up in conflict escalation because you're short tempered, you're impatient. So if you're not emotionally regulated, you're leading a emotionally dysregulated team. Now everybody is dysregulated. And I said this last week, and it stands true throughout. You are the presence, the face, and the culture of your company. So if you're emotionally dysregulated, your company is emotionally dysregulated. If you buy in, stock, lock, and barrel to the hustle culture of answering emails at 1 o'clock, I'll sleep when I die, I'm constantly worried, rushing, I'm operating in urgency, I'm wired and tired, then that's a culture that you will have. And the thing that I've noticed that's getting to be very prevalent is that hustle culture is starting to slowly die out with the Gen Xers, the Gen Zs, and some of the millennials. But most of them now, they're not into that. So what you're getting is a lot of presenteeism while they're looking for an escape route. Another thing that poor sleep affects is, like I said, reduced innovation. You don't have the time nor the discipline because you're fatigued. Your decisions are fatigued. And we have to realize that the less sleep we have, everything looks like friction, everything looks like a fire. Every decision fatigues us. What to eat, what to wear, what meetings to have, what's important, what's not important. Now I got to go home to this family and they're going to be at me. The kids are asking me questions. The wife or the husband's asking me questions. Maybe the aged parents, I need to do something for them and they're asking me questions. And you just can't manage. Eventually, you're just like, I'm tired of making decisions. And if you know how many times I've heard leaders, especially women, say, I'm just tired of making decisions. So I usually implement a lot of systems that decrease friction. And that way it decreases your decision fatigue. There's the decision fatigue also goes with a lot of executive impatience, burnout cultures, and communication breakdowns. If you're very impatient, most likely you're a senior leader or CEO that does not have an open door policy. And when you don't have an open door policy, there's a lot of communication breakdowns. There's a lot of resentment. It starts feeding into this burnout culture. And that's what the hustle culture really leads to. It leads to burnout. And it's quiet at first because no one recognizes it. And after a while, the attaboys and the doing a good job and staying up around the clock and I'm going to thug it out till I die, that's no longer tolerable. It's no longer desirable. I know for me, I was going through that and constantly, urgently, just putting out fires, can't seem to stay ahead. And when I realized I was in invisible burnout, it was almost on regular burnout. That's when I realized something has got to change. And once I changed that, the capacity that I have now to accomplish things, I go throughout my day. And like today, I just took my time getting up because I've been in a little travel stack with minimal sleep. I'm traveling right now on an assignment. And I'm just beginning the executive longevity lab, which is my group cohort for my leaders. And I'm starting school. So that's a lot. So the last couple of nights, I have not been getting any sleep. I've been burning out. So today I made up for that sleep debt a little bit because it's not going to be fully made up until I have several nights of consistent sleep, which I think I will be able to mitigate that now. And I just got up, took my time, journaled, did a few things for my business, went to the gym, worked out, had a nice leisurely lunch, and now I'm filming content. Where before, a part of me would have been like, I got to do X, Y, Z, A, B, and C. And my mind is racing and I'm rushing to do this, rushing to do that. I'm not enjoying anything. And I'm stressed. And when you're stressed, you can't function properly. There is no way I could keep the schedule that I'm keeping in burnout. So that is something definitely that we need to apply to our lives and think about it. Are you actually more effective that way? Maybe in the short term for short bursts, yes. But we were not meant to live in fight or flight or survival mode on months, years on years, and decades on decades. Just absolutely not. And because back eons ago, where would they call it? The Stone Age or whatever, when the Neolithic man was the hunter gatherer and had to worry about wild animals. Yes, they did have to worry about things like that. But we still have adopted that same mental framework. And now we have to reculturize ourselves that we're not in danger anymore. We don't have to go out and hunt and gather for our food. You know, you just walk over to the fridge and get what you want, or you order DoorDash or Uber Eats and order what you want to eat, or go out to your favorite restaurant. You know, you don't have to kill an animal and make clothes. You could just order off of your favorite shipping site and have it delivered to your house, or go to do retail therapy or whatever it is that you do. So when you think about it, how many things in our lives are really that urgent or emergent? Not a whole lot. It just becomes that because we're still in that hustle culture. And I still have to tell myself, like at first I was like, you're kind of taking a little long this morning, sis. You need to get it crack a lacking. You got things to do. And then I said, I'm going to do what I can do. I'm going to do the priority things, do my class, then I'm going to go to bed. And that is that. But if I was not intentional about my recovery, I wouldn't be able to think on those terms. And I will be on a work trip for a whole week, wired and tired, burned out, one day running into the next, not even enjoying myself. Lack of sleep often appears to be leadership or personal issues, but many are actually biological capacity issues. Again, leaders are paid for judgment. You're paid for your decision quality. And if you are not getting adequate sleep, if your recovery infrastructure, and you're going to hear me talk about this so much forever and ever, amen, because it is the fact. If you're not investing in your recovery infrastructure, that means your biological capacity is going to continue to diminish until you have health problems that halt your leadership. A matter of fact, I read a study a few months ago that 50% of leadership succession is due to health deterioration. 50%. And it's probably more than that. Because again, if you're not sleeping, you're not eating nutritious, you're not managing your stress, you're not intentional about your recovery. And recovery is daily. It's not when I go on vacation, not when the weekend comes. It is daily. If you're not daily being intentional about your recovery, your biological systems, your physiology will break down and halt your leadership and your health and your physical life. And this has aspects not just through the organization, but personally also. I want to discuss some strategies that you can implement that will help you. And these are just some practical habits. Let's start with a consistent sleep and wake up time. And this is so important. I am still working on this because my schedule is so up and down. And because my sleep, because I have hormonal imbalance, I'm in menopause, I have this frozen shoulder that acts up, excuse me, that I don't always get the consistent sleep wake times that my body desires. Like I said in an earlier episode, that my body prefers biphasic sleep. And biphasic sleep is when you sleep for 4 hours, you're probably up for 1 or 2 hours, and then you go back to sleep for 3 to 4 more hours. And it functions really well like that. Of course, like I said, I track all of that. So I keep my own recovery KPIs, and that's great. But when you have a job, you have to be there at a certain time, and you sleep for 4 hours and then you wake up, you may not have an extra 4 hours to go back to sleep before you have to wake up again. So a lot of times it will vary. But if at all possible, and you don't have a schedule like my schedule that is chaotic, try to keep your wake up time, including on the weekends, on vacation, it doesn't matter. Try to keep your wake up times within 30 minutes to an hour of, if it's 6 o'clock, try to keep it between 5 a.m. and 7 a.m. in your bedtime. If your bedtime is typically 10 p.m., try to keep your bedtimes between 9 p.m. and 11 p.m. And you also want to have a routine and a ritual, because our bodies, they recognize that. If you start doing the same thing every day, because our brain, it recognizes routines, it recognizes repetition. It doesn't really, and I heard this today and it's so true, our brain defaults to the familiar. So it doesn't foresee, it doesn't have foresight, it forecasts. So if you're doing the same thing over and over again, that's repetition. You're basically training the brain that this is what a bedtime routine is. So my bedtime routine is 60 minutes before sleep, the TV goes off. I start playing meditation music, or I may listen to a calming podcast. I journal. I take my glycine. I drink my electrolyte water, or have a cup of hot tea. Lately, it's been a cup of hot tea. Um, Light a candle. Don't fall asleep before you blow out the candle. Just a disclaimer. Um, I'm reading something calmer, because I am kind of lazy and I like to voice note into my journal, because I have a digital journal versus writing. Even though there's a lot of science that says how great writing is and how it wires it into the brain better. Um, yeah, okay, that's great. So what I do have is I have Blu-ray blockers that I put on my glasses, and that blocks out the blue light. So I'm looking at my digital electronics, and the blue light is not blocking my melatonin. So I'm still able to fall asleep. So you want to have consistent sleep wake times. You want to protect your evening recovery. Another thing that I don't do is I put on my do not disturb. I have my in case of emergency people can get through, but they already know how I am about my sleep routine. So unless it's an emergency, they know not to even call. You're not getting any conversation from me. If you text, oh, you okay? Okay. I'm getting ready for bed. We'll holla another time. But you have to protect your evening routine. Try to get some morning light exposure. Actually, before I get to morning light exposure, speaking of morning bedtime routines, another thing is you have to look at what your peak hours are. And that's why I say your bedtime, your wake up time, because everybody's time is different. Some people are night owls, and their body functions differently. It may function a little bit against the circadian rhythm and they still feel rested. Again, you have to recognize what your body is. But for me, I'm a morning person. I think better in the morning, so I protect that time. I try not to make any urgent or emergent decisions, do any planning, any strategies, anything like that in the evening hours, because I have decision fatigue by the end of the day. My decision quality is reduced. So unless it's a true emergency, I table strategic thinking till in the morning. Now, morning light exposure, and I love this. If you get up with the morning light, even if you go for a 10-minute walk, and I love to do this, this is something that I practice most of the time. Today, it's been raining all day, so I wasn't able to do it, but I at least opened the curtains and walked around in my hotel room. What you want to do is, I call it a cognitive reset. You want to just walk around for 10 minutes. No podcast, no radio, no chit chat and catching up on the phone. No, just 10 minutes of just uninterrupted rest to decrease the inputs in your mind. And it helps your circadian rhythm because once you get that morning light in, it tells your body it's time to get up. And then as the evening is coming, your melatonin starts to rise, your cortisol level starts to drop, and it signals to your body that it's time to slow down because we're going to be getting into the nighttime hours and to get some sleep. Um, let's talk about some strategic caffeine timing. I have really reduced my caffeine, but I still like a little bit of coffee. And 1 to 2 cups a day is not harmful. But what you want to do is, if you can, delay caffeine for 60 to 90 minutes upon waking up. Because what you want is when you wake up, you want your body's natural cortisol to wake you up. But that's blunted or it's exacerbated if you're already dumping coffee. As soon as you're getting up, you're like the blind man going to the coffee maker. And I used to be like that. Like, I already got the coffee pre-made, so all I had to do is stumble to the kitchen and click and hit, and it's going. And now I don't really do that. And unless I've just gotten really, really poor sleep and I need to be up for a certain amount of hours, that's the only time I would use extra caffeine. But I try my level best to keep it very reduced. And also, you want to cut off caffeine by, depending on your bedtime, 6 to 8 hours before bed. So if your bedtime is 10 p.m., you want to cut it off by 4 p.m. That's not always possible for me, but I try my best to definitely cut it off by 12 noon, between 12 and 1 o'clock. We've already talked about eating technology boundaries. I shut off my TV an hour before bed. I use the Blu-ray blockers, or they have these ambient light bulbs that you can put in the lamps that will help block out Blu-ray or the bright light. So it keeps signaling into your body that it's evening time. Melatonin is going to continue to rise and you will naturally fall into a sleep. I rarely have to use sleepers now. The only time I have to use sleepers if I know that I have to be up at a certain amount at a certain time, and I definitely need to get a certain amount of hours of uninterrupted sleep. That the biphasic sleep that my body loves, it's just not going to be possible. But I try my best not to use sleepers also. So just think about your recovery infrastructure as a leadership discipline. Your recovery infrastructure undergirds your leadership. Like I said, it's a risk mitigator, and it helps decrease the risk of you making errors due to poor decision quality. Think of it as increasing your cognitive capital. So you want to think of it as a discipline. And I always think of it like this. We are leaders. We lead by example, whether you have the title of leader or you don't. You can be a leader in just the way you conduct yourself on your job. If you're an entrepreneur or intrapreneur, and that means you work a 9 to 5, you can be a leader on your job or just in your daily life. If you don't have discipline in your own life to manage your own life, how are you going to manage companies, organizations, and teams of people? And I know a lot of people say, because I'm paid to. Mhm. Until your health declines and you can no longer get the pay to do the thing that they were paying you to do. Another thing that I do is I measure my capacity instead of hours worked. And I used to, because again, I was enthralled in the hustle culture, I would be measuring the hours worked. And I would try to stuff in everything in so many amount of hours, and it just wasn't possible. So now I ask myself, when I get up, when I'm refreshed, what do I have the capacity to function or to handle today? After I pray, meditate, and journal, and I've cognitively reset, that's how I look at my schedule now. I don't look at it as I got to do this at 8 and this at 10 and this and this and this and this. No, I prioritize it. I scan it. Okay, these are the priorities. These are the things that I must do today. Now, if I can get some light twos in there, great. If not, then it goes to the next day, or I look for a day that it will be more attainable to get that done. The world's best executives don't outperform because they sacrifice sleep. They outperform because they protect the biological systems that produce exceptional judgment. Sleep is not a reward, sleep is leadership infrastructure. Here's where I invite y'all in to hang out with me. And I hope that as I do these, not only am I talking to you, I'm talking to myself, because as I'm leading and going through this, I am giving you the messy middle. I don't have this perfected. It's a journey, and I want to hold your hand on this journey. So, if you're ready to increase your executive capacity, I want to invite you to join the executive longevity community. Right now, we're in the middle of our 45-day executive longevity lab. It just launched yesterday. I'm filming this today on Tuesday. You won't see this until Sunday, next Sunday sometime. But anyway, we're still in it, and we're going to be doing 45-day cycles. So you could just jump on in and catch up. And this is where executives work together to develop practical systems for sleep, energy, resilience, recovery, cognitive performance, nutrition, movement, and sustainable high performance. And inside the community, you'll also receive ongoing executive longevity education, live discussions, actionable implementation tools, evidence informed resources, and accountability designed specifically for leaders. I have a schedule that I do, but if you join the community, you can get hot seat coaching. I'll answer questions every Sunday. I don't have a particular time yet, but it will be on Sundays for 30 to 60 minutes where you can come in and get your questions answered. And we just started, so we're still working on how to develop our recovery infrastructure and strategies to be intentional about it. Because, like I said, that is the baseline to your leadership in your life. You can also complete an executive capacity audit, and this identifies where your leadership capacity may be constrained. And also, to give you an idea if this is something that you need, if you really believe that you can benefit from this, join the community. It's free. And there's so many nuggets that I drop in there daily and that we're having discussions about our wins, our challenges, and how we want to lead our lives and the leaders that we want to be. And if you're ready for something more personalized, if you want a more personalized roadmap, you don't feel comfortable in a group, or you have some situations that you want to remain private, book an executive longevity strategy call to discuss your goals, challenges, and the next steps towards sustainable executive performance. I want to thank you for joining me today. And if this conversation challenged the way you think about leadership performance, I want you to share this episode with another executive who believes sacrificing sleep is not a competitive advantage. Remember, leadership isn't measured by how little sleep you need, it's measured by the quality of the decisions you consistently make. I will see you next time.